What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Saturday, everybody. Okay, well, my video that I did yesterday about Dr. Abby Loeb and Three Eye Atlas had a really unfortunate reaction from a lot of people. For me, that reaction comes at least from a certain portion of people who want this Three Eye Atlas object to be an interstellar ship. That's okay. If you believe that, that's okay. And I wasn't saying that Dr. Abbey Loeb is saying that. I was saying that he was speculating on saying that with his work, which is what he was doing. And I also said that he is not guilty of any reaction that is originating from part of what he's doing. This effect from people, this gut reaction against me, because it was against me, happened as well when I spoke about Chris Bledsoe. And people got confused again when I talked about Chris Bledsoe because they thought that I was saying Chris Bledsoe was forming some sort of a religion or cult. No, I was not saying that. I was saying that people who are prone to be part of cults are the ones forming something around him. And people who are wanting for this Three Eye Atlas object to be an interstellar alien spaceship are the ones who are creating that narrative. And Dr. Abilov is part of that, but he's not responsible for it. He's just doing his scientific work. I was just asking, if possible, to be a bit more clear on the speculation part of it, because there's a lot of people that are taking this very seriously now, and they think that there's an alien spaceship coming here. I just don't agree with fear mongering because I think that for a lot of people, the idea of that happening is scary as hell. And I don't think that dealing with fear is a proper emotion to have when you're looking or trying to investigate something like that. But oh well, if I caused that gut reaction on you, just know that it was not intentional. I was just talking from a media analysis perspective. And a lot of people are saying that I also speculate here. Yes, but not with something that causes mass panic or mass fear, you know? And yeah, I also say when I'm speculating, I say I am speculating because I'm also an analyst. I'm not just a journalist, which I am as well. 15 years. So yeah, of course, sometimes I do speculate, just not with stuff like that. It's very serious though, this type of stuff, this type of news, because the movie that I go back to all the time whenever something like this happens is Don't Look Up. You can only cry wolf so many times, you know, and maintaining this narrative of stuff that will happen or could happen or predictions, eventually people are just not going to pay attention. And whenever the real thing ever comes up, nobody's going to believe it. That's the effect that this type of stuff causes. And I was just trying to raise a little awareness on that. I'm not scolding anybody. It's just the analysis that I'm giving, you know, but don't worry. That's one of the reasons why I tend not to report on a lot of these topics that are very toxic and they cause this gut reaction from people. So don't worry, I'm not going to report on it too much or maybe even at all anymore. I'm good. On today's video, I'm sorry for the short rant. On today's video, I wanted to talk about two people who are some of the most important names in the control disclosure movement. One of them was part of the 2017 rollout of information. He was at the head of it, I would say. And the other one came out in 2023. He led the first hearing on UFOs from the House of Representatives. I'm talking about Christopher Mellon and David Grusch. They're both back in the UFO news cycle. Grusch had his trial dismissed of him fighting against the release of his medical records, as it happened on The Intercept by journalist Ken Klippenstein. He didn't win that one. That was the last I heard of Grush before he was part of the most recent hearings. He was sitting right behind Burleson and Boebert. Recently, Jeremy Corbell said that he was part of the vetting process of Dylan Borland, which was interesting to me to hear. But yesterday, there was some news about him that I'm going to share with you in the second part of this video. But today, there is something that I want to read to you guys from Christopher Mellon. He is a contributor at the San Francisco Chronicle, and he wrote an op ed that I'm going to read to you guys right now. The US government is sitting on a trove of UFO records. It should release them, by Christopher Mellon. And he uses a picture of the most recent hearing in September. And here it is. At a recent congressional hearing, the public fixated on a leaked video appearing to show a US missile striking an unidentified object off Yemen in 2024. Whatever the object was, one pressing question is why it took a leak rather than government disclosure for the public to see it. I spent more than 30 years inside the US intelligence community, including serving as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence and later as a consultant to the military. During those years, I witnessed a troubling pattern. Incidents of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, formerly known as unidentified flying objects, were detected by cutting edge radar and other systems, but routinely dismissed, buried, or classified beyond justification. In 2017, I helped bring footage of 3 UAP encounters to the public. Those clips, recorded on advanced infrared cameras by Navy aviators, forced the Pentagon to admit that UAP is real. Since then, academia, startups, civil society groups, the US government, and foreign governments have attempted to better understand UAP. Lawmakers are holding hearings and classified briefings, but progress remains halting. After the release of the Navy videos, the intelligence community reclassified almost everything concerning UAP, slowing disclosure to a trickle. Rather than honor its pledge to Congress to support UAP transparency, the Pentagon continues a slow drip. I don't have a precise number, even that's probably classified. But among the thousands of publicly acknowledged UAP reports and videos, there are undoubtedly many that are no more sensitive than the 3 I shared with the public. Other UAP records go back 80 years and pose no conceivable threat to national security if they were made public. How can the government assert that nearly everything about UAP should be classified? Once made public, the 3 Navy UAP videos strengthened national security by drawing attention to unexplained intrusions into US airspace. Instead of working with Congress to enhance our domain awareness, the intelligence community created a new UAP classification rules, cloaking such videos going forward. Unfortunately, secrecy is often wielded not to protect the nation, but to mask inconvenient truths. I have seen many documents that were overclassified by zealous security officials, but excessive secrecy erodes public trust, deprives scientists of crucial data, and undermines congressional oversight. It may also be illegal. Federal law requires the government to transfer its UAP records to the National Archives for public release, yet the collection so far remains piddling. A presidential executive order forbids classifying records to prevent embarrassment or conceal violations of law. If there is a significant doubt about the need to classify information, the order continues, it shall not be classified. Meanwhile, the bipartisan UAP Disclosure Act, a landmark bill that once passed Senate, would establish a new declassification guide for UAP. An amendment to the defense bill, the bipartisan UAP Disclosure Act, if enacted, would establish a comprehensive framework to shepherd disclosure. I hope Congress passes both pieces of legislation. But legislation is not the only tool. This is why the UAP Disclosure Fund, a nonprofit organization where I'm the board chair, is taking action. We are filing a battery of requests under the Freedom of Information Act to obtain UAP records from the government. If necessary, we will litigate these requests in federal court. These requests include those for records the government acknowledges exists but has not released. For example, according to a now public memorandum entitled Flying Discs housed in the National Archives, in 1948, the Air Force ordered round the clock fighters equipped with gun camera and such armament as deemed advisable in order to secure photographs of these phenomena. Where are these photographs? I did not know that, Chris. We are also calling for more recent reports that can be released without compromising sensitive technologies and documents that could reveal how UAP data has been analyzed or suppressed. We need progress now. In a democracy, public debate makes better policy, but that isn't happening when it comes to UAP. If some of these objects are foreign surveillance platforms, every moment of undue secrecy weakens our defense. If they represent natural phenomena, understanding them is critical to aviation safety. If they represent other phenomena we do not yet understand, disclosure is the first step towards serious scientific study. Transparency is not just a virtue, it is a necessity. Withholding information also fuels conspiracy theories and cynicism, undermining faith in our institutions. When Congress and the public struggle to pry even basic answers from the Pentagon, what message does that send to the American people? This isn't about chasing sensational headlines, it's about an informed citizenry and honest government. With thoughtful transparency and rigorous investigation, we can begin to understand these phenomena and restore the trust that secrecy has squandered. Interesting from Mellon, right? I got a bad news for you, Mr. Christopher Mellon. The UAP Disclosure Act apparently is not going to pass this year. I don't know if you wrote this before yesterday, because yesterday there was very little information on UAP on the Senate's NDAA, and in the House it's not going to pass either. It seems so. Maybe wait for 2026, I guess. But it is interesting, this op-ed from Chris Mellon right after that announcement. He's not very active recently, but it's good to see him get back on it a little bit and talk about the current state of things as they are. I don't know what you think about the op-ed. Let me know in the comment section down below. The next thing that I'm going to show you came from my good friend and fellow journalist. He's retired now, Mr. David Haith. Yesterday, he sent me a thread that he wrote about an interview conducted on Dr. Brett Robinson on the What the UFO channel. There's a little part there where Robinson talks about an interview that he did on David Grusch back when he was recording a Catholic style documentary where Dr. Diana Pasulka also appears, talking about UFOs from the perspective of the Catholic religion. And Robinson states that he spoke to Grusch for about 3 hours. He states that they talked about things that are not known. And he also states that somebody, not Grusch, told him that he couldn't air the interview. He couldn't show the interview. It isn't clear if he was like demanded or forced to not show this interview with Grusch, or if it was just part of like this control disclosure timeline, and they asked him that strategically he couldn't release it, and he abided by that request. It is unclear, but I am going to show you what was said, and then we're going to talk a little bit more after. This is from the interview with Dr. Brett Robinson. The title of the video is Aliens, Demons, and Academia with Dr. Brett Robinson, so you can know the angle that this conversation is taking. I'm going to leave a link in the description for that one as well. But I've been hearing that after this came out, there were a lot of people that reached out to Dr. Robinson, and apparently he agreed to an interview, and we're going to see it soon. Still not sure where that interview is, but the people I'm hearing are some of the most known names in the UFO podcast sphere, you could say. Let's see what happens. But let's hear what Dr. Robinson says about David Grusch and about that interview that was suppressed, apparently. So here it is.
David Grusch, the whistleblower from 2 years ago, I guess now.
Wow.
We had a 3-hour interview with him. I felt like we got some new stuff, and probably not things I can talk about on a podcast, but we were, let's say, discouraged from actually including it in the final.
Discouraged by Mr. Grusch or by other people?
Other people.
Oh my. Oh, geez. This is everybody's least favorite part of the conversation is the shadowy cover-up. Deep state bullshit, frankly. But staying on the idea of a fuller picture for a minute, this is going to feel maybe like jumping ahead, but we're going to keep our conversation sort of tight today. So let's wade in a little bit to how you think about the fuller picture. I'm very familiar with this being a fraught question. So if you need to answer it at length or with as many caveats as you want, I think that's fine. I'd just love to hear how you're thinking about the phenomenon in general. What is your big picture take on UFOs?
Yeah, well, I have to say it's evolved very rapidly in the last 2 years, especially because this project required a lot of more serious research. It wasn't just casual reading of accounts or that sort of thing. So talking to people like Diana Pasulka, who wrote American Cosmic, who features prominently in the film, and just having, private conversations with her that aren't in the film that revealed other things to me that I wasn't thinking about. And so the picture, I like this term you're using, a fuller picture. I mean, it keeps expanding in a way, but my mind is, I want to integrate things. I want to kind of put pieces together, and I get uncomfortable when there's a lot of spare parts that don't seem to fit together. So at one point I was sort of moving in the direction, as many have, of this is a spiritual phenomenon. This is something spiritual rooted in consciousness or projection of consciousness or shared consciousness or some kind of Jungian thing. Of course, Carl Jung has the famous essays on flying saucers as these archetypes. So that was very persuasive to me, because I thought, okay, well, that helps explain a lot of these things that seem to violate laws of physics and all these other things. And also still provides, I think, gives some agency to experiencers who are having these very bizarre, but very lucid experiences. So rooting it in consciousness seemed right, kind of like going on a drug trip and having to explain it to someone, and it was very real to you, and may have even been somewhat metaphysically real, but it's impossible to prove that in the modern sense. So I had to include that. But then as I was talking to people like Diana, I was thinking, well, there's like nuts and bolts stories. There's like craft retrieval programs. There's people that have seen or touched craft or parts. So what is that? That can't be consciousness, or can it? Then you get into this really weird territory of quantum ideas about how reality is held together as sort of a one big thought or idea. So I'm now in a place where I'm trying to reconcile those things, the nuts and bolts, with, I think, what are the very, let's not say real in the kind of modern, like verifiable sense, but real and authentic experiences of people who have seen, touched, heard, experienced something that many, and this is Pasulka's point, many describe as spiritual. They have spiritual awakenings, spiritual transformations as a result of these encounters. So as a Catholic, I think about figures like angels, demons, but I know there's a whole camp that's dedicated just to that being the entire reality, and I'm not totally comfortable with that. I think there are other elements on the hardware side that maybe can't be accounted for by that.
Very interesting from Dr. Brett Robinson. There's a major difference because he's a Catholic, though, and he's a devout Catholic. And that documentary is about the Catholic religion and how they're tackling UFOs. But it's refreshing to see somebody like him who did a documentary like that being open-minded like that and acknowledging that both things can be potentially happening. And I do like that very much. Given my background, because I did grow up as a Catholic as well, and then I moved away from religion, I think this is the best approach that one can take. And how about that stuff about Grusch? Who do you think was the one or were the ones who told Dr. Robinson that the interview with Grusch couldn't be part of his documentary. Why would they do that? Is this part of a much larger plan? And Brett agreed sort of willingly, but because I can guarantee you, he was disappointed when he was told that. I can guarantee you. It would have given his documentary a lot more attention. Hopefully, you guys can see it. I'm going to leave it in the description. It's about half an hour. And the interview, I'm going to leave that in the description too. It's a really interesting conversation. And I think this is one of the best ways that we can try and study this. But yeah, let me know what you think. What do you think about Christopher Mellon's op-ed? What do you think about this stuff about Grusch, an interview being suppressed? What do you think the reason was behind it? And who do you think did it? Who do you think called Dr. Robinson and said, hey, interesting to ponder, right? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us, and it is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to support us in other ways, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive, like Christopher Mellon David Grusch and Dr. Brett Robinson. Always. Bye.